Hello, and welcome to Optimized, a marketing performance podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm Janet Rosseth, your host, and a 25-year veteran of multifamily marketing. This podcast is going to challenge you to reach 1% better somewhere in your daily life, and optimizing is how we'll do that together. Whether it's bringing your personal best to your work and life, building efficient work processes, uncovering new trends, or making sense of meaningful data, we'll dig in together and find that 1%. Hey friends, it's another episode of Optimized, a marketing performance podcast. I'm your host, Janet Rosseth, here today with a really cool episode. We have David Kynert with us, the Executive Vice President of Aon. David and I go way back, and he's honestly one of the most interesting people I know, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute here. But David, I'd love to just introduce you and have you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in multifamily.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that about myself, so thanks for sharing that. Like most of the listeners here, I'm sure I echo your entrance into multifamily where it was not in my plans. I was a hotel guy back in the day, worked in hospitality for about 15 years. And then one day I had a former HR director give me a call and she said, David, are you sick of working 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? I'm like, yep, I am. And she's like, hey, I think you should come apply for this regional role. I think you'd be great at it. And I did. I joined the organization and fell into multifamily, where I've now been for almost 12 years. Time flies.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what I need to clarify my comment that you're one of the most interesting people I know, because you are that fascinating person to me that you are so incredibly grounded, but you've done all this additional development in change management, and you're a little bit of a disruptor, and you're also incredibly adventurous. I don't think there's a time that I talk to you that you don't have a new compelling story of someplace you've been or something you're working on that I don't feel like, man, like David has like all the cards in his pocket. It's really fascinating. I think I've been so excited to have this conversation with you because I think here's what is really cool for listeners. This is, a podcast really based on performance and the little changes that can make a big difference. And you really, your first couple of years in the industry, you led marketing. Mm-hmm. So you get it from a marketing perspective. You understand the role that we play in this industry and how intense it can be and how we cross over everything in the organization. Mm-hmm. And then you've also done all this change management. I've seen you just, take this sort of slow, excuse me while I just go over here to this company where I'm just going to enter in quietly. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, there's like this monumental shift in the way that business does property management. And I'm curious to have that conversation just from your perspective of how marketing influences that journey.
Yeah.
So if you would maybe just kind of give us a little perspective on your work at what you're currently doing at Aon, because you shift from market rate to affordable, nonprofit.
I did. So it's been quite a journey. I did a good amount of like renovation and repositioning work in the hospitality industry. And that was kind of right when the hospitality industry was starting to bring in all of the boutique hotels and starting to get really brand focused. And then when I jumped over into multifamily, it was like taking 10-year step back in where the thought process was. Didn't care about online reputation yet, didn't care about brand, didn't care about any of that stuff. And I'm like, whoa, we could actually adopt some of these things and be ahead of that curve. So from the beginning in marketing, I always saw the best thing I was bringing to the organization was an outsider perspective. And not only from my previous experience, but also here's what customers are expecting of other industries. Why wouldn't they be expecting that of us too? We're essentially the same thing. People just stay longer.
Right.
So it was
actually, from my perspective, makes it feel like we should have even more driven customer service experiences because people can't just pick up and say, well, I'm only staying for 2 nights. I'll get through.
Right.
We got them locked in for a year.
Yeah. And at most in the hotel, maybe somebody will spend 60 nights at your hotels if they're a road warrior.
Yeah.
We have way more opportunity for that loyalty. So it was really infusing that customer focus into daily conversations in the organization and start helping people see something through a different perspective that I
Yeah.
kind of felt wasn't in the industry yet.
And now you've
So
taken that and transitioned to a company that's not only all affordable housing, but nonprofit. So, little bit different twist in bringing the branding in and the fundraising in. How are you leveraging that perception at Aon now?
yeah, it's completely interesting. When I was leaving market rate, I had a lot of people really questioning what the heck I was doing. Like, why are you doing that? And I came to the realization that affordable has a lot more challenges that they have to work through than the market rate world does. And when you add the nonprofit layer on top of that, it's even amplified more because, typically there's a lot of resource constraints there. But it also gives that opportunity, and something that's unique to the nonprofit model is that we have this whole donor side and we have this whole grant side that when we come up with really great things that we want to do, we're not selling that vision to an owner, we're selling it to the community in a sense. And the community
Right.
has to have that trust with our organization. And especially here in Minnesota, where we've had some very rampant fraud with
Yep.
nonprofits, it makes telling that story and building that trust even more important. So it's an interesting thing because we don't market much to prospective residents. Our resident retention is extremely high, so we don't have the same need that
Yeah.
our market rate counterparts have, but we have this whole other side to our business that we also have to market and find a cohesive way to make it in. Uh,
Right.
yeah.
I want to ask how many big things are you tackling, but that seems like a loaded question. It seems like there's a lot of change coming across the organization right now with Aon and just really locking in that brand, locking in that experience. I really want to dig into just your experience and your leadership in change management and how
Mhm.
you approach that. And then I want to talk about it from a marketing standpoint on just where marketing fits in that process of influencing change management, because that can be really scary and challenging to
Yeah.
bring people through a lot of change all at once. And like I said earlier, marketing kind of sits at that center of the hub for the organization that I, you know, I say this a lot and I'll say it here, like it's our job to help people drink the Kool-Aid or help people really
Yeah.
get on board and be the brand ambassadors and speak the brand and wear the brand and
Right.
lead with the brand.
Right. Yeah. When I was in graduate school, one of my concentrations was transformational change and organizational development. So I really started studying some of the theories and models and became very interested in them. But as many of listeners here, like model only goes so far. Like it's in a perfect textbook with a perfect example, and it's not too real world.
With perfectly engaged and onboard employees who all want to line up behind you and do
Right?
exactly what you want to roll out.
Not how it happens. I also layered on top as change management practitioner certification
Cool.
on top of that with an organization called ProSci, which change management is all they do. And that the perspective that really gave me is that there is this whole psychological part of change. And the more and more I thought about it, I was trying to shadow back and think, okay, I've done a lot of change. Change seems to be hard for a lot of people. Like, what am I doing that's so successful that I keep getting it moving forward? And I looked back at my experience when I first started with Aon, and my first 6 months there, I literally observed the place.
Mm-hmm.
I was drawing mind maps and taking notes and walking around the office and talking to people about pain points and what they would like to see better. And that perspective really helped me understand all of the things that weren't working that people wanted to change, but didn't really know how to go about it. So my role, in a sense, was to take all of that and translate it into a way that made sense for the organization. So,
Yeah.
for example, property management system, we changed this year. Huge project.
Which can
Believe it
be
or not.
terrifying because, I mean, I'm one of those people too that you get a
Yeah.
completely new operating system, a new phone or a new laptop, whatever it may be, and it's like there's going to be a learning curve and it's going to slow you down.
Yeah, for sure. And it did. There was no way it wasn't going to do that.
Mhm.
But from that perspective, when I first floated the idea, like it wasn't a yes. Like nobody said yes, let's do that. So what I had to do is take all of that knowledge that I got of all the things that weren't working well and start really translating it for the different stakeholders and be like, well, I understand it's a huge shift, but let's talk about once we're through it, what
Yeah.
are all of the things that are going to be solved by us doing this, and how do we find a way to get through that temporary pain so that we
Mhm.
get to something much better? So I really spent a lot of time doing that translating work between all of the different areas of the organization to help us kind of get aligned and start moving those things forward.
How's it been so far?
It's been good.
Good.
I mean, if my staff is listening to this, they'll be like, uh-huh. But we're starting to realize some of those things now that we set out to shift. And
Yeah.
of course, if anybody's seen the change curve, you go through that period of total and complete disruption.
Yeah.
And I think we made the wrong choice. And can we still go back? And what did we do to ourselves?
Yeah.
But when you finally turn the curve and start to see like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is good. I'm glad we did this. And
Yep.
that's kind of to the point where we're getting to now. So it's helped a lot of people that have worked really hard see that that wasn't a waste of their time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that journey sort of you have to take people through like it's going to get worse before it feels better.
Mm,
You
for
know,
sure.
like,
For sure.
you're feeling pain right now, but in order to get to positive, you got to kind of go through some mud to get there and
Mm,
carry through. And I think that's I change management, we've done a lot of it too. And sometimes you got to bring people through and remind them like it's not going to be perfect. Trust me.
right.
I'm going to be
Right.
right there with you.
Yep. Yep. And that's
There are
important.
gonna be little areas that we're gonna need to fine tune and fix, and I want you to tell me about them, and I want you to, share and feel it, but it's not gonna be a complete instant, "This is perfect," from the second we sign the contract.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It never is.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's the brave leaders that, like, go out and do all the homework to uncover all the pain points to make that choice that I think is really important that you have to remind people that we talked about the pain points before we made the decision. We didn't make it without you.
Hmm.
It's coming from an area of growth for what we heard from all of you, right? Let's talk a little bit. You have such a unique perspective, I think, on marketing's role in a company. And just, I think you kind of talked to me about it a little bit on just really the translation and the listening and the influencing the action. Can we talk a little bit about just what's your perspective on the organizational influence that marketing has?
Yeah. I think maybe I'm a little biased being a former marketer, but I
I
really
love
do
that.
think I really do think marketing can be an absolute powerhouse for an organization. But I really think marketing has to do a good job of actually marketing to the organization what it can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I still think there's a lot of people out there that when they think of marketing, they think of advertising.
Yep.
And that's a very small piece of what marketing actually does,
Thank you.
right? And I also see that there's a lot of alignment between marketing and learning and development in an organization because they're both out there really at the end of the day studying behavior and
Mm-hmm.
how they can influence and change that behavior. So if you look at like all of those skills that are kind of transferable, used every day in marketing, if you use them in a different way, you actually can have that influence throughout the rest of the organization, and you
Right.
can one up it by bringing all of the stuff you're hearing from your current and prospective customers. And if the organization is forward thinking enough, you're also looking at the employee experience data in that
Yeah.
realm too, to be like, if we're not taking care of our employees, maybe the results that show we're not taking care of our customers makes a lot of sense.
100%. So you joined the roundtable that I had the privilege of hosting at the Blueprint conference a couple of weeks ago, and we were
Hmm.
specifically talking about the structure of marketing departments right now and how they need to really be thinking about the future in terms of how we align within the organization. And I think the good thing about that roundtable was we had some really incredible voices at it,
Yeah.
but we had so little time. We had 45 minutes and 10 incredible voices at the table. So I don't feel like we got to really cover a lot of the things. And I think you had a really great, that perspective that you just shared right there, that marketing has such a bigger seat at the table if a company allows them to.
Right.
And I think that's a piece where I'd love to uncover with you what what should that team of people or person in the marketing department, what traits do they really need to have in order to bring the organization in that direction? Because I think sometimes it's almost an organizational, I'll use the word failure. I hate that word. But to put a very transactional person in a marketing role that's really like, yes, I update ads and I,
Hmm.
re-sign contracts and I update websites, but you are absolutely right that that role in marketing can play so much into the employee experience, prospect experience, and resident journey and seaming together the entire brand within it. So, what do you think are the traits that an organization really needs to look at when they're filling marketing roles?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a department that has so many variations in staff and positions like marketing has in
No
multifamily.
two marketing departments in this industry are the same.
It's just But
Yeah.
the position I can't get away from is really having a very effective director in that role, even if that director has to dedicate part of their day to doing those day-to-day tasks that do not
Mhm.
require a director to actually do. But what I look to, and why I would say a director over a manager, is because I need somebody with enough experience and enough lived experience to understand the rest of the organization and how marketing can fit into that, and use that to help us develop those strategies. AI is coming into this world like a speeding bullet,
Yeah.
and IT plays a role in that from a technological standpoint, but from an experience standpoint, that's marketing, and I need somebody who's going to think about that big picture enough to really help us wrap our hands around that. So there's some of that creativity and that strategic mindset that I see as really important in marketing.
Right.
And for us, like, we're doing so many changes and projects, and I don't see a state actually where we're not doing projects and changing things. I think the days of we do a shift and then enjoy it for 5 years are
Right.
long past us. So it's really that person needs to know, like, hey, can I go out to a fractional organization and pull in the skill on a temporary basis because I'm not going to need it, or this
Right.
is my weak point and I need a supplement for it, but not on a full-time basis.
Yep. Yep. You're absolutely right. And I think I can't think of many other central departments that are as just in a state of constant change as marketing. You
Yeah,
talked about stability, and that's just not always the role in marketing
right.
because even if we think we've got a process in place that's going to last and it's going to play out, the rules change on every one of the tools and sources we use.
Yeah,
Google changes daily. Search
yeah,
changes daily. Prospect behavior changes daily. AI comes in and disrupts the whole thing. Like the ILSs buy each other out, and here we are figuring that out. It's just a constant state of change, or regulations on the leasing end. So you have to have that curiosity and the eye on the future too. And I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit that a really good director in that role needs just a little bit of headspace
mhm,
to think it out and to search and network and make sure that they're tapped into people who they could maybe bring in for areas where it's not their layer of expertise, or they can help them think a little differently.
Absolutely.
It's where
Absolutely.
consultants come in, right? Shameless plug. I wonder, do you have any examples that you're willing to share with listeners on just how you've seen this skill of listening and action play out?
Yeah. So I can think back to a time when we really wanted to change our CRM system. And organization at the time had a very big loyalty to the legacy software platform that they were using.
You are literally speaking
Basically,
to every marketer right
right?
now.
Like basically if we wanted a product, if they had it, that's what we were going to get
If it
because,
doesn't align with accounting, then it's a no.
right? Or hey, IT doesn't want to manage an integration or like all
Mm-hmm.
these things. But there were enough issues with what we had that, a lot of people were spending a lot of time on something that wasn't working well. And, it wasn't without some other products built on top of that. Cause I'm sure there's people out here too that's like, okay, well, I had to get this CRM system that I didn't get to choose. So I'm going to add a chat bot and I'm going to add
Mm-hmm.
this and I'm going to add a scheduler and I'm going to add like all these things,
And don't worry, guys, all the integrations are going to be perfect.
right? And they never are. So like I want to change CRM. I know nobody around me wants to change the CRM. So I always kind of go through in my mind like, okay, well, what's out of my control here? Like, is there a market force? Is a contract or things that I just have to work around? Nothing I can do about it. And then what can I influence? And what do I just have to own? If I can't find a way around it or a way to influence the people, I have to own it and make it work. But in this instance with the CRM, I was walking down the hall and I overheard the IT group complaining that none of these integrations were working and they spent a whole day on trying to fix these things. And I'm like, aha,
I have an idea.
here's a way I can influence this group. So, sit down with them and like, tell me more about this pain point. Like, do you have any ideas how we could fix this? Like, what would your perfect world look like? And go through all of these things. It's like, well, what if we could go from 5 to 1? Would that make your job 80% better? Because I
Right.
have an idea.
What if it took a little heavy lifting to get there, but then it was so much smoother once you're there?
Right?
Yeah.
So there are ways, like I see people sometimes struggle with you get a no today and you
Hmm.
assume that's the no for the rest of time.
Yeah.
And just because somebody tells me no today, I'm not going to be that pest that's in their office every day. Like, is it still a no? But I am
Hmm.
going to be keen enough and organizationally savvy enough to understand people's pain points and their challenges and see if there's a way that we can solve these together for the betterment of both of us.
Right.
And that's not only going to strengthen our partnership, but maybe I get the tool I actually want.
Right. Yeah. There's a definite skill involved in um, selling and marketing your recommendations, because
Mhm.
it's not always just a recommendation, it's a solution. You wouldn't recommend it if you didn't see that there was a problem to
Right,
solve.
right.
So, really, I think a lot of marketers struggle with that a little bit, and being able to really present the case for
Hmm.
change and the ROI behind it. And there
Yeah.
isn't always a financial ROI. There isn't, sometimes it's time that you're gaining, or it's experience, a smoother experience that you're gaining. But being able to present that is a skill that really has to be earned too.
Yeah. And I think as you're talking about ROI, I think it's also an important point that every department has a different ROI that they're
Hmm.
looking for. Accounting wants to know we're going to save money and go from 5 systems to one.
Yep.
Learning and development is having to train on 5 tools today and would love to only train on one. Same thing
Right.
with IT.
Yep.
But you have to know that as the marketer as to what their problem and what their
Hmm.
ideal ROI would be so you can actually sell that to them.
Right. Right. Takes a lot longer than just,
Mm.
I think that is something that if we've got listeners today that are on the vendor side and the prop tech side too, like it is not a one and done kind of conversation on these kind of
Right.
tools. It's not a let's get in the door and get a demo, do a 1 hour, and then hey, we're in. Some of these conversations take 2 years to play out.
Hmm.
Can be
For
a
sure.
very long process to really, even get this kind of solution on the on ramp and
Mhm.
in the lineup to be changed because, like you said, other departments have different KPIs, different goals, but they also have their own initiatives too. So
Right. Right.
marketing's trying to line up their ideal big
Mhm.
change and, it has to get in line behind accounting's got something, IT's got something, facilities has something. Yeah. We put a lot on our property management teams.
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah.
We really do.
And then, hey, you know what? Could you also manage the residents day to day too while we're changing all these systems behind you? Like,
Yeah.
I think
No, no big deal.
yeah, exactly. That's where we all come together from a central standpoint in a corporate office to support those teams through that change management and try to lift with them rather than just like my favorite line, launch and leave it.
Right. Right.
Carry it with them rather than launch and leave it. Yeah.
Hmm.
You mentioned a little bit about just educating the organization too. And when you come into projects from a change management standpoint, what do you think are the most important points when you're educating the organization on changes coming? I
Yeah.
imagine it's gotta be early, it's gotta be often, and it's gotta be continuous.
Yeah, there's a definite art to it. I would say the most successful changes in an organization are also the most successful projects and have the most successful project manager behind them because so many of those initiatives and projects will fail if you're not able to stay on top of communication. Communication is going to look differently at different parts of any change. It starts with teeing it up like, hey, having some listening sessions, and here's we're thinking about changing property management system. What are your biggest hot buttons? What is not working for you today? Trying to get some of that buy-in, but then not just having that, it's responding to it. Here's what we heard from the team. Here's what we're taking into demos. Here's the front runners. Here's the next step in the process. It's
So by the time you
continual.
actually tell them we're changing property management systems, it is so not a surprise.
Right. And if it is, you didn't communicate.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like building a marketing plan for that
Mhm.
change and thoughtful communication touch points on a Gantt chart, which is what
Love a good
we
Gantt
have
chart.
because we didn't want to lose those opportunities. And those opportunities don't stop after the project's been implemented. We're still having those touch points with the team and learning things that can be made better and things that we still need to work with our vendors on. That
Right.
conversation shouldn't stop for a while after the change. So it
Right.
is
I feel
something
like
that,
launching is almost like the starting point with that prop tech vendor that you're just getting it out there and across the line and you're maybe utilizing it at like a quarter of what it's capable of because you're just trying to get it introduced and in the hands of
right.
your teams. But there's so much more to be done to optimize it and maximize it and
Mhm.
find the best practices.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the coolest things we did was, we had a Friday conference call where people could just come and share tips and tricks. And it turned into this great like opportunity for people to learn,
Yeah.
um, for people to come present a problem like, hey, I can't figure out how to do this, and somebody else jumps in. It's great to see that buy-in in action because it
Yeah.
makes our job as leaders a lot easier when you can find those opportunities to kind of perpetuate that through the organization.
Right. And sometimes that helps your users also realize who in the organization is more comfortable with this than they are.
Mhm.
And so they don't feel like they have to raise their hand and ask what might be deemed a stupid question. They can go to their peers and say, hey, you're really savvy at this. Like, why am I stuck? I'm
Right.
sure it's user error, but what do I do? Yeah, that's really good. I want to just talk a little bit about your advice and future outlook for marketing. What do you
Mhm.
see being the biggest future moving topic for marketers?
I mean, I don't want to say AI because I
Oh, you
feel
do.
like everybody's going to say AI, but I kind of feel like it's AI.
Yeah. Take it one depth further, like what about AI? Because there's so many pieces, like how we apply it, how we govern it, how we put guide rails up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to continue to evolve how AI fits in marketing and fits in an organization. And I feel like we're in this exploratory phase today where there are some early adopters that are way into AI right now and doing really cool things and just starting to kind of get the laggards on like, what? You had it help you with this and it
Yeah.
only took 2 minutes? How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's where we are today, but tomorrow we have to figure out, are we going to continue to just use large language models like Copilot and ChatGPT and figure out all of the user licenses and data governance?
Yeah.
Or are we going to start to find all of those smaller tools to solve niche problems?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of understanding on how that's going to impact customer and employee experience throughout the
Yep.
organization. It's not
Which
just
again goes back to what we talked to a little bit earlier on just having a little bandwidth to be able to explore and learn.
exactly.
Sometimes we stretch our teams so thin, especially in marketing departments where there just isn't a single moment of the day where there's any more room to test or.
Right. Yeah. It's also just hard to keep up even if you do have that time. Every conference you go to, there's 10 new tools you've never heard of.
Yep.
You can bandwagon jump on some of those and use them in safe, small places.
Yeah.
Personally don't feel like there's anything on the market today that's so baked out that I could get it and not worry about how AI is going to be in the business 3 years from now.
Oh,
Like
totally. Yep.
it's going to evolve.
It evolves daily. Every
Yeah,
single day, the tools we're using evolve.
right.
That's
But
crazy.
marketing is driving AI in our organization. We have actually a very technological marketing team with a full analyst on our team as well that has helped us a lot with business intelligence and some of those automations throughout our department. So they're
That's
actually
exciting.
spearheading an AI council throughout and
Nice.
really helping us figure out where that fits in the organization. So
Love that. That's really cool.
yeah.
I'm going to ask you two questions. One is going to be your advice for marketers, but I'm going to tell you what the next one's going to be just so that you can kind of separate the two. The other
Sure.
one is going to be your advice for executives in how they approach and lead marketers.
That's a great question.
We have a lot of listeners that are leading marketers, and hey, we're a little bit different group. We speak a different language, and we need the permissions sometimes to take charge. But let's go first with what's your advice for marketers?
Yeah, so I'm kind of stuck on the translation language thing as of late. So I'm glad you brought that up because for me, the marketers have to learn the language of every department in the organization to be able to effectively work with them. That means you have to understand things about human resources and things about accounting and things about all of those areas that you want to work with. Because just like if you show up in Poland in the middle of nowhere, if you don't speak the language, you're going to be really relying on the niceness of someone to take
Right.
that time and translate and figure out what you actually need from me. So if you do your homework and learn enough of the language to not sound like you have no idea what they do, that's going to help you build that circle of influence and
Yep.
start helping you understand where you fit in the organization and how you can continue to grow marketing in the
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
Um, and I would kind of, on the flip side, for executives leading the marketing department, marketing has changed so much over the last few years. You got to get out there and learn some of their language too,
Yeah.
and take that time to educate yourself on just how much marketing has changed in our industry over the last 5 years. And it's not like you have to go out and get a marketing degree. You can go to some seminars and
Go to any conference and attend a few
right.
marketing sessions and
Yeah.
yeah.
But be more open to having those conversations. And I'm sure your marketer would be so happy if an executive walked into their office and be like, I heard this thing about GA. Like, tell me more about that. What does it actually mean for us?
Yes. How are you being supported in learning it and getting educated on it? How
Yeah,
much time do you need for that? Yeah.
right.
I think there's a big assumption out there that just because things are free to utilize, marketers have all the time in the world to do that. But time is money too. If you take that marketer's time and apply it to the free things, it's free for you to just go out and, update all of those Google business profiles. Like, but is that the best
Mhm.
use of your time?
No.
Yeah.
Those free tools, you're right, they carry the highest cost for the
Yes. It's
organization.
called opportunity cost. What is not getting done?
Yep. It's a hard lesson to learn.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, we could talk about this all day long, but in the spirit of giving you back your day, I always have one final question that I ask my listeners, and I'm just going to kind of prompt this one with, I mentioned earlier in this episode that David's one of the most fascinating people I know because every time I talk to you, you've gone somewhere else. You're running a half marathon on a different continent. Like you just really put yourself outside your comfort zone and outside of status quo all the time. So
Mhm.
that might preface your answer here, but the podcast is called Optimized. It's all about performance. And I always like to ask my guests, how do you optimize your day to day to bring 1% better all the time?
Yeah, I love hearing all of the answers you get on the podcast because everybody has been so wildly different.
I've never heard the same answer twice. It's amazing.
So for me, one of my favorite things to do, I joke, I'm a paid extrovert. Like work pays me to be outgoing and talk to people, but I'd much rather sit at home and be quiet. And honestly, that quietness allows me to observe. And that's one of my favorite things with travel is that being in completely new places, there are so many things that you miss in your daily life here where you're
Yeah.
comfortable and where you're used to. Like that chair has always been there for the last 5 years, so I don't even notice it anymore. But in a completely different environment, you're like, wow, I like that chair better. Why don't I have that chair?
Right.
It really helps me see things in a completely different way and just kind of gives that fresh perspective.
See, that's exactly one of the reasons that you're one of the most fascinating people to me is that you literally do that. You observe. You're very
Mhm.
um, you know, you're just kind of deeply intentful when I see you at conferences or I talk to you or we're out in the same, social circles. You are always observing. That's such a good
Yeah,
answer.
yeah, yeah.
And learning. I mean, you're
People don't
learning.
think I'm like the creepy guy in the corner of the
Not
room,
at
but
all. No, that's why I say like so grounded and yet you just sort of like quietly enter these positions and organizations and take people through this monumental change. It's just the most fascinating thing. I've loved following your career path here and how
thanks for
lucky
that.
am I to have been in the same market to see your journey on several of these positions. Kudos to you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Where can people follow you to learn
Yeah,
more?
so I am on LinkedIn. That's the place I share when we're doing big things, and so yeah, you can certainly find me there.
And I think we need to just drop your travel blog too, because that is deeply fascinating as well. How do
Oh,
we find your
sure.
travel
So
blog? We didn't
yeah,
even get
and
a chance to unpack that, listeners. Like, there might have to be a part two with David.
everybody told me like you should start a blog, and I finally listened to them. So it's I think you did too.
I probably
Thinking
did.
it. It's called the Inspiration Uncharted.
Love
So
it.
what I like to focus on is just a lot of the great places to see great design, find that inspiration abroad. Really look for ways that you can bring some of that inspiration home without picking up a cheesy souvenir at the airport. So that's
Love
kind of what
that.
my blog is all about.
And where was your last half marathon?
Antarctica is my
Antarctica. I was
last
going to
half
say
marathon.
Iceland, Antarctica,
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
penguins, right?
with penguins.
Awesome. Where's your
Absolutely.
next one?
Hawaii in
Okay.
January. Yeah,
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 that's good timing in Hawaii.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
sounds lovely.
on the shore in Kauai at
Very
sunrise.
cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Been there, seen the sunrise. It's incredible.
Hmm.
Try not to trip looking straight across the horizon.
Do my best.
Well, this has been a total pleasure just unpacking all of this with you. And like I said, I'm just a big fan of your work and cheerleader of David and all things he does. Thank you for joining me today. Listeners, if you love what you heard, please give it a like, a comment, a share. And you can find more episodes like this at the Multifamily Media Network. Thank you for taking the time today for this session. I hope you found a bit of inspiration and wisdom to optimize your performance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a review, and share it with your network. And remember, this podcast is proudly brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, your trusted source for stories, trends, and insights in multifamily living. If you're a marketing influencer, be sure to check out Cadence Marketing Solutions at cadencems.com. We've made it our mission to support marketers and lead you to the voices, resources, and tools that impact your success in this fast-paced industry.